The first light of dawn spilled across the vast expanse of Kruger National Park, bathing the tall grasses in a golden glow that shimmered like a promise. Birds greeted the day with jubilant songs, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and dew across the plains. Nearby, a lion cub danced around its mother's paws, eyes gleaming with innocent delight as it tumbled over low rocks and rolled on the soft, green carpet underfoot, carefree in its familiar corner of this wild kingdom, unaware that the morning would soon test its fragile world in unimaginable ways. But the day held a surprise that would test both mother and child in ways they never imagined. Drawn by the challenge of its own curiosity, the cub spotted a tall, sturdy tree trunk at the edge of its play area and decided it must conquer this new frontier. Its tiny claws gripped the bark as it hoisted itself upward, wobbling like a toddler learning to walk, but growing bolder with each tentative reach. Leaves whispered overhead, stirred by a capricious breeze, and the cub paused to marvel at the shifting shadows dancing on the grass below. Yet with each upward reach, danger whispered from the branches above. Would curiosity cost the cub dearly? Without warning, a brittle limb high above gave way with a sharp crack, and the cub tumbled through the air, its frightened yelp swallowed by the sudden hush that followed. It struck the ground in a jarring impact, pain radiating through its little body as it lay stunned in the lush grass. The mother's ears flattened, heart pounding, and her panicked roar split the stillness like thunder, an instinctive alarm that drew every creature's attention across the savannah. The sickening crack of breaking wood echoed across the grassland, followed by a cry that would change everything in an instant. Bounding over, the mother lion pressed close to her cub, her tongue gently caressing the swelling on its thigh as though she could lick away the pain itself. Her amber eyes, usually fierce with pride, brimmed with a wild worry as she nudged her child, urging it to stand. But the cub could only groan, pain anchoring it to the spot. In that moment, the mother knew that no familiar corner of the forest could save her baby. Only one force could. The humans who roamed these lands in steel beasts carrying the promise of swift aid. As her soft roar rumbled through her chest, she made a decision that defied every instinct. Seek out humans for aid. Gently, she clasped the cub by the scruff of its neck, lifting it with astonishing care to avoid any further damage. Step by painstaking step, she began the journey across the tall grass toward the distant patrol route she had observed many times before. Each laboured stride was accompanied by a soft groan from her cub, a heartbreaking melody that spurred her on. The stakes were impossibly high with every tense movement. Could this life she carried be saved by crossing into unfamiliar territory? Meanwhile, in the eastern reaches of the park, Ranger Sifo, one of the few black staff members on the team, sat alert behind the wheel of the patrol vehicle, scanning elephant footprints and tracking roaming antelope. He chatted calmly with his teammates, eyes ever watchful of the shifting landscape. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a lone lioness advancing toward them at an unusual pace, a limp to her stride and a bundle clutched in her jaws. What they saw next but would blur the line between predator and supplicant. As the vehicle slowed, the team tensed, readying repelling devices in case the mother turned on them. But instead of aggression, the lioness gently placed her cub at the front bumper, her gaze locked on Sifo with a plea that resonated deeper than any roar. A wild lioness approaching without aggression. What could compel her to trust these strange giants? With deliberate calm, Sifo opened a door and stepped onto the grass, hands raised to show peace. His teammates fanned out behind him, weapons lowered, but at the ready. The mother lion merely lowered her head, growling softly, no fangs bared, then bent to lightly lick her cub's ruffled fur. Sifo's heart hammered as he knelt beside the injured youngster, ready to face the raw vulnerability staring up at him. As he knelt on the grass, heart pounding, he prepared to face the raw vulnerability staring up at him. His gloved fingers traced the cub's body, checking for bone fractures and internal damage. The cub winced, squeezing its eyes shut against the probing touch, but no crunch of broken bone greeted Sifo's ears. Only the glad thump of a bruised but intact limb. No fractures, he breathed, exchanging relieved glances with his team. A collective exhale rose from the team, but the work was far from over. How to ease the cub's pain? From the patrol vehicle, a colleague produced a medical bag. They cleaned the caked-on mud and sand from the cub's swollen thigh, the antiseptic stinging like fire on tender flesh. Carefully, they wrapped a soft bandage around the injury, and then Sifo prepared a mild sedative to dull the agony. The cub trembled as the needle slipped beneath its skin, but within moments, its breathing steadied, hope threading through the tension in the air. With each gentle stroke, the rangers wove a fragile tapestry of hope around the wounded creature. Yet time held its breath. Not far away, visiting tourists watched in silent astonishment, cameras clicking like distant thunder. Against the backdrop of rustling grass and yawning termite mounds, this unlikely tableau felt almost mythic. Humans and wild lions united by compassion. Behind dusty windshields, Sifo checked the cub's pulse and breath one last time, then advised his teammates to stand down. He lifted a small spray canister, misting an anti-inflammatory over the swollen area to hasten healing. The mother lion remained at his side, her body a living shield, eyes never leaving his movements. As time stretched by, the cub stirred, flexing its bandaged limb in a tentative test of strength. Would the cub find the strength to rise? Or would the grass claim another silent casualty? Finally, the cub braced itself on all fours, legs trembling like newly greening shoots, before holding steady. The mother lion raised her head in a soft, triumphant roar. Her voice a question, "Can my cub walk normally?" Sifo met her gaze and raised his hand in a thumbs-up sign, relaying that within 2 days, her child would be back to its sprightly self. Confidence flickered in those golden eyes. Could this tiny triumph herald a full recovery? With that reassurance, the rangers retreated behind the patrol car, granting the pair the space to move. The cub leaned against its mother's leg for support, then stepped forward into the open, its gait still awkward but filled with resolve. As they slipped between the tall grasses, a hush fell over the watchers. Had nature just shown its most wondrous bond? Back inside the vehicle, Sipo recorded the time, place and condition in his logbook for the park management board. He knew the cub would need time and care before rejoining its pride, but his faith in its survival glowed brighter than the morning sun. In that moment, ink-stained reports and whispered campfire tales carried a message of unity that would echo across the plains and beyond. Dear friend, if this story stirred your spirit, don't forget to like and subscribe for more wild moments that remind us how deeply connected we are to the world around us. As the patrol car drove away slowly, leaving behind only tire tracks in the dust, a gentle wind stirred the grass, whispering through the savannah like the soft voice of a grateful spirit. Inside the vehicle, no one spoke for several minutes. Each ranger sat in silence, reflecting on what they had just witnessed. An encounter so rare, so pure, that it felt like something out of a dream. The kind of moment that doesn't just make headlines. It etches itself into the heart. Sifo stared out the window, his gaze lost in the golden sea of waving grass, still searching for one last glimpse of the lioness and her cub. He could no longer see them, but in his mind he imagined them moving deeper into the thickets, the cub limping just slightly, nudging its mother's side for reassurance. They weren't just returning to the wilderness, they were returning to life. Back at the ranger station later that evening, as the sun melted into a warm orange horizon, Sifo took out his worn leather notebook. He documented every detail, the lioness's approach, the cub's condition, the medical steps taken. Not because he had to, because he knew this story would live beyond reports and statistics. It would be told and retold to new recruits, to visitors, to anyone who questioned the intelligence and emotional depth of wild animals, or the compassion of humans. He paused for a moment, then added a final note in the margin. She trusted us with her child. A simple sentence, but one that carried the weight of awe and gratitude. Out in the park, as the moon began to rise over the bushveld, lions roared in the distance. Not with fear, but with the sound of life pushing forward. A cub had survived. A bond had been formed, and the wild had whispered back, not all humans are to be feared. Would they meet again someday? Perhaps. But for now, this chapter had closed, with hope echoing into the night.